McDonald's fired worker for feeding leftovers to homeless kids, unaware who was watching. When a kind-hearted McDonald's worker was caught giving leftover food to hungry homeless children, her enraged manager fired her on the spot, accusing her of theft and violating company policies. However, the arrogant manager was completely unaware that sitting at one of the restaurant's tables was none other than Keanu Reeves, who had witnessed the entire shocking scene unfold. The cold Friday morning air seeped through the cracks of the McDonald's restaurant, a sharp contrast to the warmth inside. Emma, a dedicated employee of 5 years, stood at the sink, methodically drying her hands after washing them. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, reading 10:30 a.m. The dining area was sparsely populated, with only a few customers scattered around, sipping coffee and munching on breakfast items. Emma glanced around the quiet restaurant, her eyes lingering on the familiar faces of the morning regulars. There was old Mr. Johnson hunched over his newspaper, his half-eaten McMuffin forgotten on the tray in the corner. A young couple whispered to each other, hands intertwined on the table. The peaceful atmosphere in the dining area was a sharp contrast to the tension building in the kitchen. As Emma made her way back to her station, she could hear the rising voice of Mr. Bradshaw, the restaurant manager. His frustration echoed through the kitchen as he berated his team over the contents of the faulty tray. This tray, a long-standing fixture in the kitchen, was where items that didn't meet quality standards were placed for the manager's inspection before being discarded. "Look at this mess," Mr. Bradshaw's voice boomed, causing Emma to flinch slightly. "How many times do I have to tell you people to pay attention to what you're doing?" Emma peered around the corner, watching as Mr. Bradshaw gestured wildly at the tray, his face flushed with anger, a vein pulsing at his temple. The other staff members, Jack, Mina, and Tom, stood in a semicircle around him, their heads bowed in submission. "Do you see this?" Mr. Bradshaw held up a slightly burnt burger patty. "This is unacceptable. And look at these fries. They're practically swimming in oil." He tossed the offending items back onto the tray with disgust. Emma's heart went out to her coworkers. She knew how hard they all worked, how they strived to meet the impossibly high standards set by their manager. But Mr. Bradshaw seemed to find fault in everything they did. "And don't even get me started on these incorrect orders," he continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "Emma," he called, and she approached the team. "Make sure you input the correct order, and you," he snapped at the kitchen team, "it's like you people can't read simple instructions. Do you know how much money we lose because of your incompetence?" Emma watched as Mina, usually outspoken, bit her lip to keep from responding. Jack's shoulders were tense, his hands clenched at his sides. Tom, ever the quiet one, kept his eyes fixed on the floor. Mr. Bradshaw's next threat caused a collective shudder among the staff. "I swear, if this keeps up, I'm going to start charging all of you for the discarded items. Maybe then you'll learn to be more careful." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma could hear the soft whirring of the refrigerators and the distant chatter of customers in the dining area. She held her breath, waiting for what would come next. Finally, Mr. Bradshaw seemed to deflate slightly. He ran a hand through his thinning hair and let out a heavy sigh. "Empty this tray into the bin," he ordered, his voice slightly calmer but no less authoritative. "I'm taking a break. When I come back, I expect everything to be in order." Emma watched through the office window as Mr. Bradshaw gathered his things, his cigarettes, wallet, and phone. After a moment's hesitation, he grabbed his bag. This small action didn't escape Emma's notice, and she filed it away for later consideration. As Mr. Bradshaw exited through the back door, Emma caught the meaningful glances exchanged between Jack, Mina, and Tom. They hadn't moved to empty the faulty tray as instructed, a fact that both worried and intrigued Emma. Curiosity getting the better of her, Emma approached the back doorway, watching until Mr. Bradshaw disappeared around the corner. His figure grew smaller in the distance. With a quick glance over her shoulder to make sure no one was watching, Emma closed the back door, leaving it slightly ajar. It was a small act of defiance, one that filled her with both excitement and apprehension. Returning to the kitchen, Emma found her co-workers huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. As she approached, they fell silent, eyeing her wearily. "Phew, that was harsh," Emma said. "You guys okay?" Jack, a part-timer who had always admired Emma's kindness, nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, he's gone now, which is a relief. We don't mess up orders on purpose. It just happens sometimes, especially during the hectic transition between breakfast and lunch. There's always a bit of overlap with orders, and customers often don't realize the time when they place them. Plus, those new automatic order machines really need an upgrade to handle the shift better, showing what's available and not." He let out a sigh. Emma agreed. "I agree with you, Jack. I think Mr. Bradshaw will be gone for a while. Did you notice how he hesitated before grabbing his bag? It's like he suddenly decided to leave for more than just a quick smoke break." Jack nodded. "I think so." Mina, never one to hold back her opinions, shook her head. "I don't know, guys. He went through the back door, which usually means he's coming back soon. If he was really leaving for a while, wouldn't he go out the front and take his car?" Tom, who had been silent until now, spoke up softly. "We should be careful. None of us wants to lose our jobs." Emma nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. But there was something else on her mind, something that made her heart race with anticipation and fear. "Those children will be here soon," she whispered. The others exchanged knowing looks. They were all aware of Emma's secret acts of kindness, her determination to help the homeless children who frequented the area around the restaurant. It was a risky endeavor, one that could cost them all their jobs if discovered. But in that moment, as they stood united in the quiet kitchen, there was an unspoken agreement among them. They would continue to help, to do what they could for those less fortunate, regardless of the consequences. As they dispersed to return to their duties, Emma's mind was already racing, planning how she would manage to help the children today while avoiding Mr. Bradshaw's scrutiny. Little did she know, the events about to unfold would test her resolve in ways she could never have imagined. The gentle chime of the bell above the door signaled the arrival of a customer, pulling Emma from her thoughts. She quickly composed herself, plastering on a professional smile as she approached the counter. "Good morning," Emma greeted warmly. "What can I get for you today?" The man, a middle-aged figure with kind eyes, smiled back. "I'll have a coffee, please, and let's add a baked apple pie and a 6-piece nugget box." Emma nodded, fingers dancing across the touch screen as she input the order. "Certainly, sir. Would you like your coffee black or with cream and sugar?" "Black is fine, thank you," the man replied. As Emma prepared the order, her mind wandered to the slightly open back door. She couldn't help but glance in that direction every few seconds, her heart racing with anticipation. The coffee machine hummed, filling the air with the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. "Here you go, sir," Emma said, placing the tray on the counter. "One black coffee, a baked apple pie, and a 6-piece nugget box. Is there anything else I can get for you?" The man shook his head, smiling as he took the tray. "No, that's perfect. Thank you." As the customer walked away, Emma quickly washed her hands again, her eyes darting between the clock and the back door. She knew she only had a small window of opportunity before Mr. Bradshaw returned. With a deep breath, Emma made her way to the back door, exchanging knowing looks with her co-workers as she passed. Jack gave her a subtle nod of encouragement, while Mina kept a watchful eye on the front of the restaurant. Tom, ever cautious, pretended to be busy cleaning the grill, but Emma could see him glancing in her direction. As Emma reached the door, she heard a soft knock. Her heart leapt in her chest as she carefully opened it, revealing a young girl in a ragged pink winter jacket. Sophia's big brown eyes looked up at Emma, a mix of hope and fear swirling in their depths. "Sophia," Emma whispered, her voice filled with relief and concern. "I'm so glad you made it. The mean man is away right now, but we have to be quick." Sophia nodded, understanding the urgency in Emma's voice. "Thank you, Miss Emma. We're really hungry today. It's very cold outside." Emma's heart clenched at the girl's words. Without hesitation, she turned to the faulty tray, quickly selecting a chicken burger and a few beef patties. She wrapped them carefully in napkins before handing them to Sophia. "Here you go, sweetie," Emma said softly. "Is this enough?" Sophia clutched the food to her chest, her eyes widening with gratitude. But then, a flicker of hesitation crossed her face. "Miss Emma, is it okay if I take this to my brother first? I'll come back for more for me and Mom." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. The selflessness of this young girl, putting her family's needs before her own, never failed to move her. "Of course, Sophia. I know you need more. Go quickly and be careful, okay?" Sophia nodded, a small smile lighting up her face. "Thank you, Miss Emma. You're an angel." Just as Sophia was about to leave, the sound of the counter bell ringing pierced the air. Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Hurry, Sophia," she urged, "and watch for the manager on your way back, okay?" As Sophia disappeared into the alley, Emma quickly closed the door, leaving it slightly ajar as before. She rushed back to the counter, her mind racing with thoughts of Sophia and her family, even as she plastered on a smile for the next customer. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of orders and transactions, but Emma's thoughts never strayed far from the slightly open back door and the promise of Sophia's return. She found herself constantly checking the clock, counting down the minutes until she could help the young girl and her family once more. The lunch rush was just beginning when Emma's heart nearly stopped. Standing at the counter, looking as casual as any other customer, was none other than Keanu Reeves. Emma blinked hard, certain she must be imagining things. But no, it was really him, the Hollywood star, right here in her McDonald's. Taking a deep breath to calm her nerves, Emma approached the counter with a professional smile. "Good afternoon, sir. What can I get for you today?" Keanu smiled warmly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Hi there. Could I get a double cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke, please?" Emma nodded, trying to keep her hands steady as she input the order. "Certainly, sir. Will that be for here or to go?" "For here, thanks," Keanu replied, his voice just as kind and gentle as Emma had imagined it would be. As she prepared his order, Emma couldn't help but steal glances at the actor's casual outfit. It was clear he was trying to blend in, and Emma was determined to respect his privacy. "Here you go, sir," Emma said, placing the tray on the counter. "One double cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke. Enjoy your meal." Keanu thanked her with another warm smile before taking his tray to an outdoor table at the front of the restaurant. Emma watched him go, still hardly believing what had just happened. Her moment of starstruck wonder was interrupted by movement at the back door. Emma's heart leapt as she saw Sophia peeking in, her eyes wide and anxious. Emma quickly made her way to the back. "Sophia," Emma whispered, ushering the girl just inside the doorway to avoid the chill. "Did you manage to get the food to your brother?" Sophia nodded, her small frame shivering slightly in the cool air. "Yes. He was so happy, but I'm still really hungry, and so is Mom." Emma's heart clenched at the girl's words. Without hesitation, she turned to the faulty tray, selecting more items. Another burger, some chicken nuggets, and a few more patties. As she handed them to Sophia outside, she noticed the girl's eyes darting nervously. "Sophia, sweetie," Emma said gently, "I know you're hungry, but you can't stay here. It's not safe. The manager could come back any minute, and if he sees you—" Sophia's lower lip trembled. "But Miss Emma, I'm so hungry, and if I take—" They stood frozen, their silence filled with a mix of concern and curiosity. "Everything okay?" Jack asked, glancing towards the back door. Emma ran a hand through her hair and nodded. "Yeah, just, the usual." Mina shook her head, her brow furrowed. "Emma, I get that you want to help, but this is getting dangerous. If Mr. Bradshaw finds out—" "I know," Emma said quickly. "But what else can we do? These kids are starving, and all this food just goes to waste." Tom, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Maybe we need to think about this differently. There has to be a better way to get unused food out there. Something more official." The group fell into a thoughtful silence, each of them considering the situation. The stark contrast between corporate policy and human need had never been more apparent. Their discussion was suddenly interrupted by loud, angry shouts from the back of the restaurant. Emma's blood ran cold as she recognized Mr. Bradshaw's voice. "What the hell is this?" he bellowed. "Get away from there, you filthy homeless kid!" Emma, Tom, Mina, and Jack froze, exchanging panicked glances. Through the kitchen window they saw Mr. Bradshaw advancing on a terrified Sophia, who was standing by the trash bins. Emma's heart raced. She wanted nothing more than to run out and protect Sophia, but she knew that would only make things worse. Instead, she forced herself to turn away, noticing a new group of customers approaching the front counter. With a heavy heart, Emma moved to serve them, trying to push the commotion from her mind. But as she took their order, she couldn't help but wonder if Sophia had managed to escape unharmed. The weight of her secret charity felt heavier than ever, and Emma knew something had to change soon. But for now, all she could do was continue her work and hope for the best. As Emma served the new customers, she could feel their eyes on her, curious gazes scanning the room. The shouting had not gone unnoticed, and the expressions of the customers ranged from concern to discomfort. "Excuse me," one of the customers, a middle-aged woman with a furrowed brow, spoke up. "What's going on back there? We heard shouting." Emma felt a knot in her stomach, but managed to keep her professional demeanor. "Oh, it's nothing to worry about," she said, forcing a smile. "Just a little misunderstanding between the manager and some kids from the neighborhood." The woman's eyes widened slightly. "Kids from the neighborhood? Do you mean homeless children?" Emma's heart sank as she watched the other customers exchange uneasy glances, their whispered conversation growing louder. Words like dangerous and unsanitary floated through the air. "Well," the woman said, gathering her purse, "I think we'll just go somewhere else for lunch." "Thank you, though." Emma stood frozen, watching as the group of customers turned and left without placing an order. The realization hit her hard. Just the mention of homeless people was enough to drive them away. She felt hollow and conflicted. Before she could dwell on it further, Mr. Bradshaw's voice boomed across the restaurant. "All staff in my office now." The team exchanged worried glances as they filed into the manager's office. Mr. Bradshaw stood behind his desk, his face red with anger. "I cannot believe what I just witnessed," he began, his voice shaking with rage. "Do you have any idea how close we came to a disaster? Those vermin could have contaminated our entire kitchen." Emma felt a surge of anger at his words, but kept her face neutral. She could see Jack shifting uncomfortably and Mina's jaw clenched tight. "From now on," Mr. Bradshaw continued, pacing behind his desk, "I want every one of you to be on high alert. If you see any of those homeless people approaching the restaurant, you call the police. Immediately. Understand?" The team murmured their assent, but Emma could feel the weight of his words pressing down on her. The tension in the room was suffocating. "They're nothing but disease-carrying rats," Mr. Bradshaw snarled. "They scare away decent customers and bring nothing but trouble. I won't let them ruin this business. Look at how small this chain is compared to other McDonald's locations. It's my job to improve it for the owner. If the owner found out about this, it'd be my job on the line. Do you understand?" The team nodded in silence, and after a few more harsh words, Mr. Bradshaw dismissed them. As Emma made her way out of the office, she caught sight of her co-workers' faces. Tom looked troubled, his usual quiet demeanor replaced with a furrowed brow. Mina's eyes flashed with barely concealed anger, while Jack simply looked sad. Outside the office, Emma mouthed a silent thank you to her co-workers for keeping her secret. They responded with subtle nods and understanding looks. Their silent solidarity was a small comfort in the face of Mr. Bradshaw's harsh words. Back at their stations, Emma couldn't shake the memory of the customers who'd left earlier. Their disgusted reactions, the way they'd recoiled at the mention of homeless children, it made her wonder how many others shared that same disdain. How many people would turn away from those who needed help the most? The rest of the afternoon flew by in a blur. Emma moved through the lunch rush, taking orders and managing the chaos. but her mind was elsewhere, consumed by thoughts of Sophia and the others. When the clock struck 3 p.m., Emma finally allowed herself to take a breath. The customer traffic slowed and she looked at the clock. It was almost time for her break, the 30 minutes she'd set aside to check on Sophia. "Mina," Emma called out, trying to sound casual. "Can you cover the counter for me? I'm taking my break." Mina nodded knowingly. "Sure thing. Take your time." Emma made her way to Mr. Bradshaw's office, knocking lightly on the door. When she heard his gruff voice, she steeled herself before entering. "Mr. Bradshaw," she said, keeping her tone steady. "I'm going to take my lunch break now, if that's okay." Without looking up from his computer, he barely acknowledged her. "Fine. 30 minutes. Not a second more. We're short-staffed as it is." Emma nodded, biting her tongue. She refrained from mentioning how the short staffing was a result of his decision to cut hours. Instead, she said, "Thank you, sir," and left the office. Her heart pounded as she headed to the back door. The cool afternoon air hit her face, and she took a moment to collect herself. She had just 30 minutes, 30 precious minutes to check on Sophia and her family. When Emma stepped outside, her eyes immediately locked onto something that made her heart sink. There, on the sidewalk, was a perfectly wrapped burger, the same one she had given Sophia for her mother earlier that day. She bent down to pick it up, her fingers trembling slightly. The sight of the discarded food was a reminder of how scared Sophia must have been when Mr. Bradshaw shouted at her. Emma tucked the burger into her bag and rushed down the nearby alleys, scanning for any sign of Sophia and her family. After what felt like an eternity, Emma spotted a flash of pink in the distance. Her heart leapt when she recognized the tent Sophia had described as her home. It was tucked away in a small alcove, partially hidden from view. Approaching cautiously, Emma knelt down by the entrance and called softly, "Sophia? It's Emma from McDonald's." There was a rustling sound from inside the tent, and to Emma's surprise, the flap opened to reveal not Sophia, but a woman who looked strikingly like her. The woman's wary eyes softened with a flicker of recognition. "You're the one who helped Sophia," she whispered. Emma nodded, offering a gentle smile. "Yes, that's right. I just wanted to make sure she's okay after what happened this morning." The woman's face softened, and she gestured behind her. "She's not here right now. She went to look for her brother. But thank you for helping her." "For helping us?" As the woman spoke, Emma noticed a small bundle cradled in her arms, a newborn baby, no more than a few weeks old. Emma's eyes widened. "I didn't know Sophia had a new baby sister," she said softly. The woman nodded, a mix of pride and concern crossing her face. "She was born 3 weeks ago. It's been tough." Emma felt a rush of understanding. No wonder Sophia had been asking for more food lately. Her mother would need extra nutrition while breastfeeding, especially in this cold weather. "I'm so sorry," Emma said, her voice filled with compassion. "Is there anything I can do to help?" The woman hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm not sure. After this morning, she's scared. She thought she might have to look for food somewhere else, but we don't know many places that can help us." Emma's heart clenched at the thought of Sophia wandering the streets alone. "Of course," she said quickly. "Tell her to come back to the restaurant after 5 p.m. The manager will be gone by then. And tell her to look out for a black Ford Explorer." This version keeps the same story and tone while adjusting the word order to improve the flow and make it sound natural. As Emma stood to leave, she realized with a start that her break was almost over. She had to hurry back to the restaurant. "I have to go now," she said apologetically. "But please make sure Sophia knows it's safe to come back. I'll be waiting for her." With a final nod to the woman, Emma turned and hurried back towards McDonald's. Her mind was whirling with everything she had learned: a new baby, the increased need for food, the fear that kept Sophia away. It was almost too much to process. As she approached the back entry of the restaurant, Emma paused for a moment. She pulled out a cigarette and a small cracker from her pocket, attempting to calm her nerves before returning to work. Her appetite had vanished, overwhelmed by her worries for Sophia and her family. Taking a deep breath, Emma stubbed out her barely smoked cigarette and straightened her uniform. She had to focus now, had to get through the rest of her shift. But her mind was already racing ahead, planning how she could help Sophia and her family even more. As she pushed open the back door and stepped into the familiar warmth of the kitchen, Emma knew that her mission had just become even more important, and even more dangerous. The afternoon wore on, a steady stream of customers keeping Emma busy at the counter. Despite the constant activity, her mind kept drifting back to Sophia and her family. The image of the newborn baby, so vulnerable in such harsh conditions, haunted her thoughts. As she served another customer, Emma's eyes were drawn to movement outside. Keanu was still at his outdoor table, his laptop now open in front of him. The actor's face was partially obscured, both by the screen and his efforts to remain inconspicuous. Emma couldn't help but be intrigued by his extended stay. She wondered what could be keeping him there for so long, but pushed the thought aside as another rush of customers demanded her attention. A lull in customers gave Emma a moment to breathe. On impulse, she decided to treat Keanu to something extra. She quickly prepared a tray with a baked apple pie, a fresh cup of coffee, and a box of 6 chicken nuggets. Stepping outside, Emma approached Keanu's table. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly. "I thought you might like a little something extra. It's on the house." Keanu looked up, surprise evident on his face. "Oh, that's very kind of you, but it's not necessary. I'm fine, really." Emma smiled, placing the tray on the table. "Please, I insist. It's my treat. I noticed you've been here for quite a while." Keanu's expression softened as he studied her face. "You know, I have a feeling this isn't really on the house, is it? It's coming out of your own pocket, right?" Emma felt a blush creep up her cheeks, surprised by his perceptiveness. "Well, yes, but please accept it. I've noticed you waiting here for so long, and I just wanted to do something nice." A warm smile spread across Keanu's face. "In that case, I'll gladly accept." "Thank you, Emma," he said, glancing at her name tag. "Your kindness is truly appreciated." As Emma turned to leave, Keanu spoke again. "You know, I'm actually working while I wait, making the most of my time here. This friend I'm meeting, well, let's just say they're pretty important." Emma nodded, curiosity piqued but not wanting to pry. "Well, if you need anything else, just let me know." As Emma walked back into the restaurant, she felt a small sense of accomplishment. In the midst of all the stress and worry of the day, this small act of kindness towards Keanu felt like a tiny victory. She returned to her position behind the counter, her mind still occupied with thoughts of Sophia and her family, but also with a renewed sense of purpose. The afternoon stretched on, with Emma keeping one eye on the clock, waiting for the moment when she could potentially help those in need once again. As the end of office hours approached, Emma felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The restaurant was quieter now, with only a few customers lingering over late lunches or early dinners. Finally, Mr. Bradshaw emerged from his office, car keys in hand. "Emma," he called out as he passed the counter. "You're in charge of closing up tonight. Make sure every procedure is followed to the letter. Take pictures of the closings and send them to me. And I also want a full report in the morning. Understand?" "Yes, sir," Emma replied with a curt nod. Mr. Bradshaw turned and headed for the front door. Emma watched as he pushed it open, the bell above jingling softly. The sound of his footsteps faded as he walked across the parking lot. A moment later, the distinctive rumble of his Ford Explorer's engine filled the air. Emma held her breath, listening as the sound of the car grew fainter and fainter until it disappeared entirely. Only then did she allow herself to relax, her shoulders dropping as she let out a long, slow exhale. The atmosphere in the restaurant seemed to shift immediately. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted, allowing everyone to breathe a little easier. Emma's coworkers began to gravitate towards her, their faces a mix of relief and anticipation. Jack was the first to speak, a grin spreading across his face as he leaned against the counter. "He's really gone for the day," he said, his voice low but filled with excitement. "We're in the clear." Mina, however, looked less certain. She glanced towards the back door, her brow furrowed with concern. "Emma," she began, her voice hesitant. "Do you think Sophia will come back after what happened this morning? Maybe we should rethink how we're doing this." Tom, who had been quietly wiping down tables nearby, joined the group. He nodded in agreement with Mina, his usually stoic face etched with worry. "She's right, Emma. This isn't sustainable. We're going to get caught one of these days." Emma sighed, running a hand through her hair as she considered their words. She knew they were right. The risk they were taking was significant, but the image of Sophia's hopeful face, of the gratitude in her mother's eyes, was burned into Emma's memory. "I know," she said softly, looking at each of her co-workers in turn. "You're right. I'll think about it and try to come up with a better plan. But for now—" She paused, her resolve strengthening. "For now, we need to be ready. Those kids are counting on us." As if on cue, a soft sound drifted in from the back entry. Emma's heart leapt at the familiar shuffling of small feet, the hushed whispers of anticipation. She exchanged a quick glance with her coworkers before hurrying to the back door. With careful movements, Emma eased the door open. The cool evening air rushed in, carrying with it the scent of car exhaust, the faint aroma of nearby restaurants, and underneath it all, the unmistakable staleness of the street. There, huddled in the alley, were 6 homeless children and 4 adults. The room buzzed with energy as everyone listened intently, occasionally asking questions or offering their own ideas. A sense of possibility and hope filled the air. As the conversation progressed, Emma could hardly believe how quickly things were changing. Just hours ago, she had been afraid of losing her job. Now, she was helping to shape a new company policy that could make a real difference in people's lives. Finally, Clarkson held up a hand, a smile spreading across his face. "I think we have the beginnings of something truly special here," he said, his voice warm with approval. He turned to Emma, his expression serious but kind. "Emma, your compassion and initiative are exactly what this company needs. I'd like to offer you the position of manager for this location." Emma's jaw dropped, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. "Me?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know if I'm qualified." Keanu stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've already been doing the job, Emma," he said softly. "You've shown leadership, compassion, and the ability to think outside the box. Those are qualities that can't be taught." Clarkson nodded in agreement. "He's right," he added. "With some additional training, I believe you'll excel in this role. What do you say?" Emma looked around at her coworkers, seeing their encouraging smiles and nods. She thought of Sophia and her family, of all the people she'd been able to help. With this new position, she could do even more. The realization filled her with a sense of purpose and determination. "I accept," Emma said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Thank you for this opportunity. I won't let you down." As the meeting concluded, Emma's co-workers surrounded her, their voices a chorus of congratulations and support. Tom, Mina, and Jack were especially enthusiastic, their earlier concerns about the risks of their secret operation now replaced with excitement for the future. "You deserve this, Emma," Mina said, pulling her into a tight hug. "We're all behind you 100%. As they filed out of the office, Emma noticed movement at the back door. Sophia's face peered in, her eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of fear. Emma beckoned her over, and the young girl approached cautiously, her family following close behind. Emma knelt down, bringing herself to Sophia's eye level. "Sophia," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth. "I have some good news. We're going to be able to help you and your family, and others like you, even more now. And you won't have to be afraid or hide anymore." Sophia's face lit up with a smile that seemed to brighten the entire room. "Really, Miss Emma? You mean it?" she asked, hope shining in her eyes. Emma nodded, feeling tears of joy prick at her eyes. "I really mean it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Things are going to get better. I promise. As Sophia threw her arms around Emma in a tight hug, Emma looked up to see Keanu and Clarkson watching the scene with approval. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but in that moment, surrounded by her co-workers, Sophia's family, and her unexpected allies, Emma felt ready to face whatever came next. The McDonald's restaurant, once a place of secret kindnesses and hidden tensions, was transforming before their eyes into a beacon of hope and community support. And Emma, with her unwavering compassion and newfound authority, was at the heart of it all, ready to lead the way into a brighter future for everyone.